Can you hear me? Okay, good. Well, it's a small group tonight, so I think it it was meant to be that way because I'm nervous still, but it's easing a little bit. Um, I remember when I was speaking to Nut uh, about possibly talking, giving a talk. Um, it was in September, and he we were finishing up with a training session with the dogs, and I think he asked me how I was doing, and um, the I said I'm okay, and I said honestly, I'm so happy that I found this group, and um, the it's kind of funny because I want to go to the retreat, and but I don't know if I'm going to fly, and this is the first time I've ever decided to. Get on a plane and fly. And he's like, oh, really? And I said, yeah, I haven't flown in many, 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 many years. And I've been afraid of flying. And I basically told him uh, why. And I said that I was a 9/11 survivor. And this was the first time I ever had thought that I could get on a plane and because I wanted to go to the retreat. And I said, it's pretty soon. And he said, hey, would you ever think about giving a talk? And, no pressure, but uh, I think that it'd be something that the others would want to hear your story. And I said, no, you know, no, I don't think I could ever, I don't think I could ever talk about what took place. And he's like, think about it, think about it. And I did. And then he approached me, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I'm ready. I can talk um, about my story, and I feel this community is so warm and welcoming. Even though I'm nervous tonight, he's still a warm and welcoming, and I look forward to ex- sharing every week. I look forward to coming on here every week, and then the weeks that I think there was 1 or 2 weeks I was not on here. I missed it so much, and it was um, yeah, it felt like something was missing in the week. But anyway, and honestly, today I didn't know what to speak about, and part of it was my story, and but also part of it is just learning. Every week I walk away from this group and I learn something, or I feel like just the validation of a feeling or something. And I just am immeasurably like just I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. So and I'm new to um Buddhism and just the the thinking, but every time I learn something, it feels so much a part of me. And I think the first thing that I learned was when we had Brother Dave on, um, and he was explaining how life and everything was like, and this happens. And I started going through life and going, and this, and this, and dealing with, I deal now because of being a September 11th survivor. I deal with uh, post traumatic stress disorder and um, and an anxiety disorder. So life is always and this, and um, honestly, last week, Nut was talking even about having a distracted mind and negative thoughts, and I was like, wow, like that helped, and how he just explained how to think of it, and just his explanation helped me so much. And I was, I wrote it down and stuff like that. So I do walk away from this enriched in some way, some form every week. So it's a blessing. It definitely is a blessing. Um, my story is, I grew up normal kid, and in the suburbs of New York, and I always was just I got along with everybody, and I decided to go into um, finance, and which brought me to uh, New York City to work in finance. I took after my grandfather, who was an accountant, and I remember that when I was offered the job at a firm in the World Trade Center, my mother had said to me, she's like, "Are you sure you want to work there?" I had two job offers. I had a job offer to work in the legal department at the BBC, where I was going to go back to law school and become a corporate lawyer for the BBC. But the job offer at the World Trade Center was from my friend worked at the firm and all that kind of stuff. And I just was drawn to it because I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to work with my friends and work downtown. It's a financial. So I chose that side instead of going to work for the BBC in their law department. And my mother she just was like, are you sure? Are you sure you're going to want to do this? Are you sure you're going to, because there was a bombing in 1993, and she's like, I don't think you should do this. And I was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be um, fine. Lightning never strikes twice. So I was there the day of September 11th, and that day changed my life forever in good ways and bad ways. I like I said, I walked away from it with PTSD and anxiety. I lost friends, dear friends, and I became a hermit in a way for 8 years. I didn't go out. I didn't. I moved to another state. Didn't see my family. Lost my friends, and I was in a very dark period until um, I decided to move to Florida, and then I moved up to North Carolina. And at that point, I still was in home, like homebound, just afraid to. I was afraid of my own shadow. And then something told me to. I don't know where I went, but I decided to start volunteering. I said that I need to get out of my head and start helping people. And that's when I started to work for a pediatric cancer, not work for, but I volunteered for the pediatric firm for about a year. And then they were like, oh, you're so diligent, do you want to work for us? And it was the greatest blessing because it got me out of my my shell. It got me out of my head. I started to learn from people, and and then I saw these children that had this perseverance and resilience and just determination to get better.
Mm,
And that helped me to say, this is, life is short, and look at these children and look at their determination, and it inspired me to do better, to be a better person, to approach life better, and to see, that their life was worth living. And that's the same way I see our brothers and sisters in this group, that their determination and their willingness and their perseverance and just this zest for life to keep going. And that's given me the same type of feeling, just it's just an amazing, and it's an inspiration. Um, so basically, I past couple of years, um, I worked, I volunteered and worked for the pediatric cancer cancer society, and then I moved up to New York for a little bit, and I went back to New York, which was very strange because I had determined I was never stepping foot back there, and it just brought me back, back down to the Carolinas, and that's when I decided to get married, and then I had my daughter, and she's been another reason for me to just keep going and just to fight through the post traumatic stress disorder and anxiety, and just it's a uphill battle, but it's worth it's it gives me I'm determined to always be ahead of it. And like I said, I learned so much from this group, and just I remember Nancy's talk with the right thoughts, and thinking the right thoughts, and the premise of the right thoughts, and um I try, I try to practice that, and even just sitting and meditating helps a lot with my anxiety. And it's yes, life is a struggle, but it's definitely worth living, and I um, definitely enjoy being a part of this group. Um, I'm just trying. I apologize. I'm nervous because I'm trying to see, and then honestly, um, it was kind of funny because Nancy, you today with your meditation, you brought out the four immeasurables, and that's a new concept that I just learned from you, and I was just like, wow, surrender, because that's something that was brought up today. I've been thinking about surrendering, like just learning how to surrender and just letting go and letting be instead of trying to control outcomes, and trying to control life so that I can live with it safely in life. But surrendering is the best way, um, and just meditating and the boundless love. And I like I said, I'm so thankful for everything that I learned here, because it helps me, and been um, it's just been just a life changing for me. Um, so I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank of everything that I was supposed to talk about. um, yeah, I guess I would rather, like, I don't know if it would be easier if someone had questions for me as far as, that, and sorry about that. um,
Don't be sorry. Let's open it up for questions. Uh, it's, I just want to say how inspiring you are, dear one,
yeah, thank you.
and how much bravery you're showing. And it's true, this group of people are so extraordinary, aren't we all?
Very
In
extraordinary.
in their resilience and
Eh,
the ability to surrender. And I love how you kind of first came out of this with selfless service for others. And can you
yeah,
talk about how that changed things for you a little
it
more?
did. It did. I I knew I had to. I always, from a young child, I was always like giving, and I always wanted to help others. But I think that when I saw these children, it really spoke to my heart, um and it helped me more than it honestly helped me more than I helped them. And it was just, yes, it was selfless service, and um it got me out of that, um that where I was just inside and afraid of my own shadow, and it was something that I wanted to do, and it was beneficial for me in so many ways, in so many ways. So yeah.
Alyssa, I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, I've never heard a personal story about 9/11.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of stories, but not a personal story. And it touched me very, very, very deeply. And I don't know if you want to say anything more about it, your specific place and time and what actually happened. That I would love to know that, but I don't want you to answer that if that feels like the wrong question.
Oh no, I'm okay. I'm so okay with that. Years ago, I couldn't talk about it, but I can, and I feel comfortable where I can talk to you all about it. Um, I was a financial, I don't know, assistant. I was an assistant to the CFO, and I worked on the 53rd floor of the second tower. I worked for a reinsurance firm, and the night before, on September 10th, I was in a meeting until 7:30 at night, and I remember I was, just young and single, and my friends had gone out. It was Monday night, and everybody was out and stuff like that. And the same firm my friend worked at, she worked at the same firm. And the next morning, ended up waking up late because I was like, I'm not going in. It's late. I worked late the night before, and so my friend roommate, she's like, okay, you go into work with me. And the my whole morning was just, normally I'm up and at work at 8:30. I was at work at 8:30 usually, and she was like, come into work with me. Didn't get into work. Did everything totally not what out of my norm, not out of completely out of my norm. And so I followed her to like go get her coffee and all that kind of stuff, and we split. We got to Tower 2, and we went to the elevators, and we split, and she went upstairs and I went into one elevator that just never left the floor, never left the ground floor. And I heard, while I was in the elevator, and the elevator doors never closed, I heard explosions.
Oof.
And I remember there was a man that I always remember that he was right across from me. And he looked at me and he said, like we had this like just looking at each other and just like, that wasn't right, you know? And the then I heard another explosion. I was like, okay, that I've got to get out of here. And again, the elevator doors never closed. They just remained open, and the elevator was still on the ground floor. Um, I got out of the elevator, and I still, just looked up, and I saw fire and paper and um, just smoke. And I was like, I knew something was wrong. And then I remember two women were running. It was like very eerie. No one was around. Usually it's like very busy. It was very busy. And I knew to, I was like, okay, I've got to get out. There was a door right behind me, but I chose to go in. I don't know why. I still to this day don't understand why I didn't go out the door that was right behind me. But I chose to go into the building, like into like the mezzanine area. And just basically at that time, they were not letting us out of the building because they said building 2 was secure. And then there was like a crowd of people that they were not allowing out of the building. And they kept us in the building with the security guards. Um, and finally, there were like security guards that came and said that there was a bomb. There was a bomb in building 2, let everybody out. And when we ran out, they basically opened the doors, and let us out. And we had police officers directing us not to look up and to just keep running, looking, don't look up. Just look at, and I remember this one police officer was just, please look at me. He's like, look at me, keep looking. And then I remember running past him and stopping. And I turned around and was like, oh my goodness, like what's going on? My best friend, she's up there, my coworker, everybody's up there. And I had stopped and um, just to get my bearings. And then I realized that I was like, I had to call my family, my father, and I was trying to get through on my cell phone and couldn't get through. But I think I did turn around, and at the time, there was payphones there, the payphones. And I waited online for a payphone to call him. And I just said, Dad, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm going to make it. I'm going to try to make it home, and I'm just safe. And I think after I hung up the phone with them, that's when I heard the plane. I heard the plane and I heard the clap and looked up, and a fireball was coming at me, and just it was surreal. It was, just everybody, people getting out of cabs and trucks, and everyone just abandoning cars and just running, and just running. That's all I remember was people running. And I ran to like I don't know if anyone, knowing New York, there's the Hudson and East River. So I ran to the East River because I knew that was like probably the safest place to be away from all the buildings and stuff. Because at the time I felt like all you heard was planes and stuff. So yeah, decided it was some way to get out of there, and no way to the just tons of people, and we were all watching. And I had made it back to like City Hall, and that's when I was just standing there, and that's when the buildings started to crumble. And that time I didn't know anything, whether my best friend or my coworkers. I just saw a building to crumble, and I started to scream. Um, but it was short lived because there was a rush of people coming at me, and I had to turn and just run for my life. And um, I think I was with a group of strangers, and we ran to Midtown Manhattan. Like we walked up to Midtown Manhattan, and I was able to um, get like no trains or nothing was running. You were stuck in the city. But we ran to a tunnel that was, a way out of the city, and there was a bus, like a travel bus, it was a Hampton Jitney bus going out to the Hamptons. And the guy was like, they're allowing me out because I have to take the bus out of the city, and they're allowing me out, and I'm not leaving this bus. I'm not leaving until this bus is full. And the women that I was with that were downtown, we there was a crowd of people just standing around the bus, one like almost like fighting to get into the bus. And um people just turned around and looked at us, and they could see where we were, and like it just crowd parted. It was amazing. It was just, I remember the crowd just parted, and we were the first ones on the bus to leave the city. And yeah, I don't think, and I didn't go back for a while. And we later like found out several friends had passed. But my best friend, she was fine, and my coworkers were fine. They had gotten out. But I had one of my favorite bosses and a friend of mine had passed, and so it was yeah, that's, and I think from that point on, I knew that I couldn't go back. And yeah, it was a hard time for me. I went into depression and then didn't understand what was going on. And my doctor's like, you have PTSD, you have depression. That's what's going on. And it's understandable. And my life changed from that point. Uh, yeah, and I never went back to finance. And well, finance working in in New York City. So yeah, so that's my story. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. That's so impactful.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much for
you.
sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
Mm.
You're welcome. Sorry if it was there was emotion there, and just trying to.
You have nothing to apologize for,
Mm.
dear friend.
Yeah,
That was so, thank you so much for that. You offered us a gift. You really did. I didn't know anybody's personal story, and it is so harrowing, so impactful, and how it affected your life. Wow.
it did. Thank you.
Mm.
I had articles in 2010 for, I think it was 2011, when there was the 10th anniversary. I had like 3 or 4 articles written about my story. I didn't want them written. I didn't I And then I remember they were like, you're going to help somebody by this story, and I was like, really? But yes, I had articles written about it. And um yeah, just living through it is, but I just see everyone. I see resilience in everyone and perseverance, and that's what keeps me going, to see other people fight for their lives and their determination. So it keeps me going.
Thank you, Elise. Elisa, I think it's beautiful that you shared your story.
Thank
Um, you said two things, or two things stood out to me that you said early on, before you shared your story. You
you.
talked about those of us in the sangha,
Mhm.
and how you see us, so many people here with resilience and this desire to live. And then you spoke about, when you were volunteering at, I think you said, the Children's Hospital
If it was for pediatric cancer, yeah, pediatric cancer.
for pediatric cancer, and that you saw resilience there.
Yes.
And then you went on to share this your story with us in your resilience.
Uh,
I think it takes so much courage. Um, I at least humbly, in my humble opinion, it takes a lot of courage to lean back into an experience, that is very painful, that brings up a lot of emotion,
mhm.
and you've done it so beautifully, and so elegantly, and this with so much, um, honoring everyone that was impacted in those buildings. I was all the way in California. I still remember where I was at when I first heard the news saying what was going on in New York,
Mhm.
and it made me stand still. I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Oscar.
Listen, wow, that was just so uh uplifting and inspiring. You know, I mean, for some reason, the first time I looked at you, I just said, and it's like everybody in this song, they generate this glow, and but there was something particularly, and I think what it is just your resilience is so positive. You know how some people are resilient and it's like, but they're fighting for some reason, your experiences, they just made you stronger. They made you more compassionate, and like you said, I know it probably took some time, but I guess the time was worth it because I know all those children were gifted by your presence, and I know, you were gifted by them too. It's just wow, just to see you, and it's like you can tell that. I mean, it's it 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 didn't. It just made you stronger, more beautiful, more. It's more everything. I mean, I'm struggling to pull out words, but it's just when I talk about like love, and I'm talking about like just a unconditional positive regard, you know, and like for the experiences that you had, you still kept the positive regard even for the experience, and you took it to a higher level, into a different level. And it's just I wasn't gonna miss this for anything. I was I was tired. I'm out here. Well, we were both out here on the East Coast, but yeah, but I said, no, she's talking. I gotta hear this. And I've been really blessed by your story, and I just appreciate you. And I think you're just a wonderful human being, and I love you.
I'm struck by all the angels in your story that you met along the way, the police officer, the bus driver, the people that opened it up, the children that you met. And then, of course, you're an angel to so many people. And that's really like we are all just carrying each other. And your story really illustrates that. And thank you for being an angel to so many.
I have a question, Alyssa. First, I'll say I do really, really appreciate your story. And yes, it brought up emotion for me because I can identify, I mean, I have had some experiences with that. And anytime, another soul that I am familiar with expresses some kind of experience like that, I'm going to feel it, and that's not a bad thing. Anyway, I was going to ask you if you have any, like, there was an explosion in my house a couple of years ago, small one, but still. And now, since then, every time there's a loud noise anywhere, I jump. And I just wondered if you had anything like that.
Yes, I do. I'm very reaction, like any little thing, sounds. Um, yeah, I tend to like things quiet. I don't like fireworks. Thunder, anything that's loud sounds. I
With that.
jump. I'm very sensitive to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Elissa, thank you for sharing your story. Just like Jill mentioned, this is the first time we hear from, I hear from someone who has that personal experience with the event. And I remember I never forget when I learned about that. It was early in the gym. I was working out in the gym, like on the treadmill, and I look up to the TV, and I saw the plane going in the building, the first one, and I thought, and some people say, oh, it's an accident. And I say, no, it has to be on purpose. It cannot be an accident. And then my heart wants to stop when we see the second one. It's a horrible experience. And, it's so great that you find a way to get over, deal with it by working for, taking care of children. So it's great. that you can pull it out, pull it up, and have the your own child, and taking care of the child must be very warming and encouraging. And I hope that finding meditation eventually really really help you with the practice and understand and learn more about Buddhism, and from the group or anywhere else, the books about it and all that. So I hope that will reinforce you, make you even better, find the equanimity in yourself, and keep coming. Thank you.
This is Oscar again, Elissa. I wanted to ask you this. I intended to, but I started to talk and I forgot about my question. Right? When you started volunteering at the Cancer Pediatric Center, when did it come to you that in service could lie what could help you?
I just don't know. I think I just started thinking better. I stepped outside. I was so in my own thoughts.
Yeah.
I was in my own thoughts. I was, oh, I don't want to do this. I was in my own thoughts. And then when I actually said, let me help and volunteer, that's when it started opening up, yeah, I got out of my own head, as I said, and that was how it all happened, because I started to volunteer and seeing these children and their families, and that's how it all happened. And I wasn't within my own head.
Thank you for your teaching, Elissa.
Yep.
Just one more thing, Alyssa, which is I was in New York in 2005, and my uncle, who lived there, brought me to the site. And I don't think I could have any idea of how huge it was. It was all cleaned up by that time. And so there was no remnants of the explosion and the collapse, but it was just this gargantuan empty space. And it just brought back what a disaster, what an incredible disaster. And imagining you being there and experiencing that is big, so big. I still appreciate your story. Thank you.
I guess I was thinking that you're with an ideal mix of people here, because you're with people who are doing service, who have gone in to the prisons, and you're also with the men formerly inside, who are the returning citizens who've been traumatized usually, if not before going to prison, by prison, and then have come out and been of service as well. So it just speaks to the really healing and powerful aspect of being of service to others and giving to others healing.
Yeah, Lisa, I really appreciated your story. I used to work in One World Trade Center. But at the time of the 9/11, I was actually in San Francisco. But all the places you talked about, I'm very familiar with, and it just bring up so many memories, because in major cities they had, like, I know in San Francisco, if you worked in a landmark building or like a high rise, they asked people to go home. So I actually worked in a landmark building, so they asked us to leave the building. And I remember friends of mine. One good friend of mine lived in Prospect Park, and she was telling how she walked across the Brooklyn Bridge in order to get home. So it was, even for me, it brings up a lot of memories. But I cannot imagine what it's like for you. But I'm so glad you were able to get out and receive
Thank you, sister.
humanity from a lot of people to bring you here today. And thank you for actually sharing the story. I know it couldn't have been easy. Thank you so much.
I have a big connection to New York too, and lived there for several years prior to 9/11. And my brother, who I'm very close to, lived in Dumbo, right under the bridge. And he was a photographer part-time for the New York Times. And the towers, when I visited him, the towers were his window was like looking at the towers. The towers were everything. And he watched the planes hit the building, and then he began running the buildings. He began running across the Brooklyn Bridge against all the people running out of Manhattan towards Manhattan. And then the first building fell, and he said, "Oh no," and ran back to Brooklyn. But he has unbelievable photographs that he took of the whole event. And I was so aware that he was there, and our friends, thank God no one I knew lost their lives there, but a lot of New Yorkers that I knew that was there. And I remember I was living in Denver at the time, and I had small children, and having this sense of, is war going to begin now? Or, what is going to happen? And trying to find some kind of, I remember I wasn't a Buddhist, and I went to the Unitarian Church, and I wasn't even, just because I felt like I had to go someplace that could hold the enormity of it. Thank you. Just hearing the story makes me feel a little bit of connection to trauma, So I can only imagine.
Thank you. I remember one time, I think Nicholas had said about the grief of the time, and I just I remember thinking, like, wow, like, yeah, the grief of the time while he was away, and I was like, wow, it's like just the connection, and it's just amazing that this community, I'm, you know, sometimes you think you're different, life is different, but no, it's just we all live life, and we can all learn from each other in some way, way, shape, or form, and I'm thankful for this community because it helps me um, to learn, and it's enriched my life in so many ways. I'm thankful for you all.
Have you established a meditation practice?
No, I try, I really do, and I've been sitting and like just and allowing myself to like try to clear my mind. It's still a process, because um I remember, like Nut said last week, the distracted mind. My mind is so distracted, and just to hone in, I do try, and it's something that I'm working toward. Uh, Meditation to really uh, do that and successfully do it.
And just to say, you do it successfully, because a distracted, busy mind, in Buddhists, we call it the monkey mind, it's the human condition. And if you're sitting and you're noticing those thoughts, and each time you notice it, you're bringing it back, you're meditating beautifully. That's what meditation is. I think that in, this country in particular, people have a misconception that meditation is being able to just clear your mind and empty it totally. And that's not it. That's not the process. The process is noticing your thoughts and bringing and not following them. Whenever you notice it, sometimes, and I've been meditating, for 17 years or something, sometimes I'll have practically written a novel before I notice and bring my attention back. Sometimes I still the thought waves of the mind pretty early on and have but one meditation is not better than the other. Those are both really good meditations. So I just encourage you to try and do it about the same time every day, first thing. Because if I put it off and do it later in the day, I try to do it before I go to bed too, but I never miss my morning meditation. And if I do it first thing, the rest of my day won't be my excuse for why I can't make it happen. I would start small, 5, 10 minutes, 3 minutes. And it's more important to be consistent and small than to, try to do it for an hour or even 25 minutes or 20 minutes in the beginning. Start small, but consistent. And if you miss, just like, if you eat a piece of cake, you don't go, oh, I blew it and that's it. I'm just going to eat the rest of the cake. You just go, okay, I missed a few days. It's okay. And I'm going to start again. And we're all here for you to support this and to support each other.
And just to piggyback to what Nancy was saying, if you can, just find a spot, and that's the spot where you meditate daily. And and you don't have to necessarily have like a form of practice where you're actually sitting. If you just like standing in line or just meditate for like 1 or 2 minutes. And like what Nancy was saying, consistency is the most important thing. And it's not about how long you meditate. It's just, especially at the beginning, you just want to be consistent with it.
Yeah.
Something I learned this week was a quote from the Dalai Lama. And he says, as you breathe in, cherish yourself.
Mm.
And as you breathe out, cherish all beings. And you can do that at any moment. You don't have to do it 2 times or 3. You know what I mean? You can do it 2 or 3 or 4 times, but just doing it once, it brings us, at least for me, brings me back to the present moment. It's lovely. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
everyone, I want to be cognizant. It's after 7:30, but you really bring home to me what a loving, really spiritual family we are, and how lucky we are all to have each other and to have you, Elissa, as part of this big family. So bye, everybody. As Lawrence always says, love, love, love.
Love.
Love,
That's
love.
it. Love, love,
Thank
love.
you.
Thank
Right.
you.
See you next
Thank
week.
you, guys.
Next
Bye,
week.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.